everyone, and welcome to Ascend the Hill. I'm Jeremy, and before we get started, I just want to remind you to subscribe, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. That notifies you that something new has come out, and it also just gives us a little feedback that you're watching, that you're listening. So really appreciate it if you do that. Today, we have an episode that'll be a little different. As you know, we've kind of shifted gears, different people in the seats, different types of conversation. And today, I have Justin Oakes, who is one of our board members here at Cornerstone. Now, Justin, I hear you told me before we got started that you have your own intro to the show. Can you share that?
I've been working on it.
Okay. All right.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill, where sin is dumb, Jesus is king, and the quest for righteous living has taken the place of carnal desires as the passionate pursuit of life.
My gosh, that was thorough, and you threw in the voice.
Right.
Is that like how you
Now, be careful, because Ramsey may say, listen, that was close.
I know. You might be hired by Ramsey after this. Pastor Gunner's off screen laughing and in his usual jovial laugh. Well, today we'll talk about a little bit of your life. And the biggest reason I wanted to have this conversation is the last couple of weeks we've talked about kingdom finance, Christ-centered handling of our resources. And within that, there's obviously the conversation of faith, but also just the conversation of using the blessings we have, using our intellect, using our time, using our will in a way that begets success in our life. And I just have watched you, and you are killing it in life. And I just wanted to create some space for you to talk about, some of the decision making that you've kind of faced in different crossroads of your life, and just to hear some insight and some wisdom. But before that, you're on the board here at Cornerstone. How long have you been on the board?
I believe since 2018. So
okay.
We're approaching the
so close
10-year
to 7 years.
Yeah, 8 years.
Yeah, 10. Your math wasn't as accurate as mine.
Yeah,
you rounded up. All right. It probably has felt like 10 years at times.
There have been those times,
for
sure.
Well, I just wanted to address that and bring it to the light in the beginning, because I love you.
Yeah. And
I've enjoyed the friendship that you being in that role and me being in this role has afforded us. There's just a lot of stereotypes when it comes to board pastor relationships out there. And if there's any pastors listening, any church leaders listening, I just want to say it doesn't have to be negative. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be a relationship that feels like you're on different sides. I feel like what we have right now with my relationship with you guys and vice versa is we're on the same team. We all know our roles, our places in it. And I enjoy it a lot. It's one of my favorite relationships in the church.
Right. And I'm just, after the last 2 years of you being in leadership, is so thankful. Anybody that's been at Cornerstone a while knows that we went through some transition periods that were difficult, but the level of transparency, forthrightfulness that have come, not only with the board members that we have, but the policies that we put in place. And, when I first got on the board, I was like, I really don't know why I'm here. Alan, great at accounting.
Yeah.
Chris Gelsko runs or is on the board of several nonprofits, has inside knowledge. Obviously, we're going through some real estate decisions right now, which is my forte, so I can kind of see that being useful.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing, and I think I want anybody from Cornerstone to know, is I take that role very seriously.
Yes, you do.
I feel like that at some point I'll stand in front of God and he will look at how I stewarded the resources that the people of his church gave to the church and the board made decisions about.
Yes.
And I do not want any I undotted, any T uncrossed, any question of what our motivations were.
Come on, man.
Yeah,
and I can just attest from personal, private conversations we've had that is your heart's desire. Something that we talked about in the last week or two in our staff is every penny that comes into Cornerstone is somebody's worship.
Right.
It's someone's hard-earned, sweat equity, sacrificial living that acquired it and then gave it. And so we're going to be held account
Right.
For how we handle it. And that's so much of the dynamic with myself and the board is I'm not a businessman. I feel like I've got a reasonable amount of intelligence and, logical reasoning and common sense. But at the same time, there's just a lot of stuff that is nowhere within the framework of my experience. And it's just refreshing month in, month out to sit with you guys and talk about those aspects of the church, which are a part of our health. Like that's a part of being healthy, being financially responsible, being wise and savvy with decisions we make, agreements that we step into. And then I just want to add this. You have been really intentional these 2 years to just check on me. Michelle appreciates you a ton because of the occasional and sometimes just random check-in of how's your heart, how's your soul, how's your family, how are you doing? And I appreciate that a ton. I feel like there's a bond of brotherhood between us and between all of us that are on the board. And it's way past business. It's into the understanding that if we're not doing well in our soul and spirit, we can't make good decisions. Right. So we got to check each other in that way.
Well, as we branch in and talk about business and the church, I don't know if you remember, but when you were being interviewed, I sent you a question from a statement. I was in a pastoral conference for some reason, and I was trying to figure out why I was there. Yeah. And I stood up and asked this gentleman, I said, I'm a business guy. These guys are all pastors. What am I supposed to do? Yeah. And he made the statement. He said, when Jesus wanted to change the world, he hired 12 businessmen, not 12 pastors.
Come on.
And I sent that question to you. Maybe you'll elaborate on that of what he was getting to and how you worked through that.
Yeah, I don't remember the answer that I gave.
It was lengthy.
But I knew. Well, as is typically the case with anything I do, verbose. Way too many words. The word count was driven up. It's probably from those years of college where you got to write something this many words. Right. So you just start throwing words in there.
Hammering it out.
Every a, and but you can fit in. But I definitely recall the question, and I think it's a really interesting take. Now, he obviously turned them into apostles, but like anybody that becomes an apostle, they are starting out living life, and the Lord grows them and develops them. Maybe you need to speak to how I answered. Do you remember it better than me?
No, I was hoping you would remember it. I probably have it saved somewhere. But I think you addressed the process of moving from businessmen into apostles and why they were chosen.
Well, on the surface, like he picked people that were already in the community. He picked people that were engaged with society. And beyond the why he picked them, I think it speaks to us, and my heart ultimately for anybody that isn't working in the church is that they would be awakened to their kingdom purpose and what they're doing. That in whatever arena God has put them in, that is their ministry field. And I've shared this multiple times in different ways. As a church member, yes, the team you serve on in the church is a part of your ministry. But I believe your real ministry is the places that God put you outside of the church, where he's given you influence, he's given you voice, he's put you around people that don't know God, people that are in need. And if all of your ministry is just in the church on team, then you're missing a wide swath of potential impact and leveraging the influence that God gave you. And, right. And that was part of, even we talked about last week, Pastor Chad and I, that I think sometimes we don't do real well at speaking to people of affluence, because it can always seem to come across like, all right, we got our hand out in the church, like your ultimate objective is to give. But even the acquiring or attaining of wealth, we know in the way the world works, it increases influence. It puts you at tables that you wouldn't normally get invited to. And if you're a kingdom man, a kingdom woman, and you understand your assignment, righteousness, peace, and joy in the Holy Spirit, to do your best to perpetuate, God's order and God's ways and God's decision-making processes in society, then you realize wealth put me at tables that allows me to shape the course of whatever I'm at the table at. And then simultaneously, as I increase, yes, I give generously, but that means my business is increasing, or whatever I'm doing to serve humanity is increasing. I'm making people's lives better. I can help more people through whatever it is that I'm doing in the marketplace.
And I think pastors have to separate the conversations with people of wealth of always digging into them, convincing them to give, and the people with the wealth cannot use it as a pride point.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's over the last several years of, if I want to give in something besides a regular tithe and offering, if I feel called to do something, I try to approach somebody privately.
Yes.
I don't want anybody to know about it. The left hand doesn't need to know what the right hand is doing. So I think that's kind of a rub is, you get some of those characteristics that it's a pride point for them, that they're giving extra. They need to back down. The pastors need to feel comfortable approaching their congregants that are affluent in that area about, hey, do you feel called to give here?
Yeah.
And not be ashamed about it.
Yes. And I think in part, it's just, for whatever reason, a really awkward conversation for people in general, and then for pastors and congregants. And for me, any awkwardness is just stemmed from, I hope that my motives aren't, like, I hope I'm not misunderstood, but at the same time, it shouldn't be an uncomfortable conversation. Right. If both people have a healthy relationship with money and resources, then you could talk about it and it's not unusual. So my mindset is, if somebody's uncomfortable talking about it, there's probably some work toward health that needs to be done. Well, look, I just have a few things I wanted you to talk about today. I was going to do some would you rathers, but we're already in the thick of it.
I'm not a would you rather.
And you don't want to do the would you rathers.
I kind of fast forward to that.
Yeah, well, you don't care.
I'm honest.
Well, I do appreciate that. That's good to know.
You can would you rather all you want.
Well, there are other people.
I'll fast forward through
there are other people that stop listening after those are over,
really?
So we get a little bit of both. Yeah.
Okay.
So just tell me a little about your upbringing, and just first though, right now, what is it that you do? Just explain what you do.
It depends on the day. Main two focuses about 40% of my time. I'm an auctioneer, so I work 4 to 5 wholesale car auctions a week around the city.
Okay.
It's taken me a while to get that territory. Typically, people in that business travel all over the United States each week, run a circuit.
Wow.
So I've gradually worked that down to where I'm within 45 minutes of a sale from my house.
That's awesome.
The other 60 to 70% of my time, I'm a contractor with the Department of Justice. It's something I've been involved in since 2012. We work with the U.S. Marshal Service, FDIC, Department of Justice, National Credit Union Administration, any real estate properties, and some of those entities, some personal properties that they take in. If it's the U.S. Marshals, it's a seizure. If it's FDIC, it's a bank failure.
Yeah.
And we manage those assets from basically a custody phase to a sales and disposition phase.
Okay.
So that includes title work, valuation, analysis, sales and marketing, and then disposition out the door.
Okay. So there's probably a good percentage of people I don't know what you just said.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
But that's okay.
That's all right.
It's a really unique profession and dual profession. But my guess is when you were starting out, that wasn't on your grid.
That is correct. I grew up in Kansas, and my dad was a career law enforcement officer. My mother, she worked odd jobs to help pay bills and take care of us, that kind of stuff. She finally opened up her own company when she was about 40, a screen printing and embroidery business, and then I think sold it about 15 years later.
All right.
So when I was growing up, I wanted to be a cop, and my dad talked me out of that. He said that you don't get paid for the risk you take anymore, so go a different direction.
All right.
And I was like, okay, well, then I want to be a veterinarian.
All right.
I went to junior college. I got into senior college at Kansas State and was having a real issue with biochemistry. And I was like, maybe this is not for me.
Yeah, I don't think I would succeed in biochemistry
I had
either.
2 guys ahead of me that their dad was a K-State alumnus that I'd worked for. He
Yeah.
was a small animal vet. They didn't get in. And I was like, I have no chance.
Yeah.
Zero
Hey, you read
chance.
the room.
Right.
You knew real quick, okay, this was good in theory, but this is not how I'm wired. So you wanted to be a vet, and now you're working with U.S. Marshals and you're auctioneering. That's just a wild, like, change in career arc. How did that kind of happen?
I moved to North Carolina to take on a teaching position at a community college.
Okay.
Thought that was my next venture. Spent 2 years there, realized that was not for me.
Okay.
Moved to Middle Tennessee to work on a master's degree in event management because I had started an announcing business when I was out there, and I thought if I could manage one of these coliseums like the Bridgestone or whatever,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So I moved to Tennessee, and about a year later, the lady that sold me my house when I came here comes back and said, "Have you ever thought about being an auctioneer?" No clue.
Yeah.
Well, our auctioneer's in his 70s, and we're looking for somebody to follow him up, and thought that you might be interested. Okay. So after I got my master's work done during the day, I was going to real estate school and auctioneer school at night.
Okay.
And then in 2007, when I graduated, I never got a real job.
Yeah.
I just stayed self-employed.
That's awesome. So an auctioneer. My grandfather, my papa, he would do auctions in his sale barn. I remember being in the barn and people are all in there, and he's doing the thing. I have very faint memories of it, but I never would have in my mind like grasped like this is a career arc. This is a profession. Like this could lead to a lot of fruitfulness in life. I mean, just describe it a little bit. It's a lot of talking. You were auctioning today for a couple hours. So I can't believe you can talk right now.
Like this morning, it was a wholesale car sale. So I was working for Nissan. They were selling all their off-lease cars. So I sold about 225-250-ish cars this morning. And
there's an art to it, right? Like what's a couple of keys to being a successful auctioneer?
You have to have ADHD.
Okay.
Because really, a car pulls up, we have screens with valuations and bidders on it, right?
Okay.
And then we have a rep who is telling us what they want for their vehicle.
Okay.
So as the car approaches, we're checking the valuation, checking their sheet to see if they're in alignment with each other.
Yeah.
We're watching to see who followed the car up out of the alley to see who's interested in it.
Yeah.
We're deciding where to start the bidding and where we got to get to end the bidding. And then announcing it sold and calling the number. The consignment lanes are different. I'll sell about 85 cars an hour. Nissan today, I usually sell about 120 an hour because they have pretty firm floors. So I know where I have to be.
Yeah.
And so we get there and we go on.
So aside from ADHD, what's another key skill or key mindset?
It just takes time. Everybody wants to know how you do the auction chant. It's just a lot of practice.
It's a learned cadence.
Yeah, you go to school and they give you some starter filler phrases that you use. And then it's just practice, muscle memory after that. So
what is, and this is just an ignorant question, but like, what is the purpose behind the cadence and behind doing it with that pace?
To create a rhythm, to create excitement.
Okay.
And then you're making mental adjustments in there. Especially today, I have a lot of online buyers, so they can, the speed and pace of their bidding can start to control your sell.
Yeah. So
if they start to do that, I may find one that I can sell more quickly and get them back up on the edge of their seat saying, oh, I can't hesitate because I may miss this car.
Okay.
And then they start bidding more rapidly.
I got you.
So it's not only valuation, but I'm trying to control the environment.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And there was all in the hopes of making the asset bring more money.
Yeah. So there was a time, if I recall, you were like national champion.
That's right.
Auctioneer.
Champion.
Tell me that. Like,
champion.
How old were you when that happened? National champion auctioneer.
That was in 2012.
2012.
How old would that make me? I'm only 6 months younger than you.
I know.
What is that?
We're
30? 30-ish?
Yeah, I don't remember.
32-ish?
No, early 30s.
Anyway, I graduated from auction school in 2007, and I was working, I had 3 or 4 different things going.
Yeah.
I was doing insurance adjustment, doing auctions, trying to sell real estate, still running my announcing career. And the opportunity to compete at this contest has created a greater network.
Yeah.
So you got up there, you made friends with who you were competing against, and they would call you to come help them do a sell in a different state. So it was an income deal and a networking deal. And then, won a championship 2012.
Well, within that, I mean, you don't become a national champion at anything without a level of drive, determination, hard work, just focus. And I would say, you've had obviously a unique career arc, and you started with certain ideas of what you were going to be, and that's evolved over time, and you found yourself kind of not stumbling into, but being presented with paths that you maybe had never really thought about before.
Right. And I think and I think you and I have talked about this before, it really took off after 2010.
Yeah.
I had grown up in the Lutheran church, and I don't want to say anything bad about the Lutheran church, but I just never felt a relationship with God. God was always up there and I was down here.
Yeah.
Right. Doing my thing.
Yeah.
And so when we came to Cornerstone in 2008, I noticed a difference immediately. I was like, I can feel it here. Okay. And so we get involved in Cornerstone, and in about 2010, I'm looking at the ministry going, that's the only way I can do God's work. If I'm in the ministry.
Wow.
That's the only way I can do it. And so I talked to Kelly. Chad and I had this conversation, Pastor Chad Browning. And he's like, you just need to pray and seek the Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm very impatient, so I'm going through.
And you're praying and seeking the Lord about, should I get into ministry?
Yeah, I was going to leave what I was doing and go work for a church.
Yeah.
And so weeks and weeks and months and praying and fasting, and I mean, on my face in the office praying.
Yeah.
If this is what you want me to do, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And so there came a week, I think I was in the middle of a John Bevere study, and he wanted me to spend the first 5-10 minutes just in silence.
Yeah.
Just waiting on the Lord to speak. And I know you said this before. He's like, when people come to me and said they heard the voice of God, you kind of take a step back.
Yeah.
I heard the voice of God.
Yeah. Well, it can sometimes be a manipulative tactic, or, like, don't Jesus shoot me. Like, but I believe you. I believe people hear the voice of the Lord.
I can't tell you that it sounded to me that it was audible in the room. It may have just been between my ears.
Yeah.
But he said, and I waited, and I said, Lord, speak to me.
Yeah.
And he said, hello, Justin. I love you.
Come on.
That was it. And then after that, he began to show me, you started your first business when you were 9 years old. You started your second business when you were 12. You started your third business when you were 16. You started your fourth business when you were in your 20s. I have created you for the marketplace.
Yes. And
so that was freeing for me. I finally, and I think it was, I had decided to give it all up. It's yours. And he said, now we can go.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, I live in a world where we would do camps every summer, and part of the ministry and the organization I was a part of, you just kind of want to keep score of what happened during the summer. So every year we would kind of accumulate a total of how many got saved, how many filled with the Holy Spirit. And one of the segments was how many are called to ministry. I had a tension point with that, because ultimately what I care about is people, they're called to Jesus to follow him.
Right.
And wherever he leads, and if you glorify one thing, then you subconsciously, inadvertently diminish another. And somebody saying yes to Jesus in the marketplace is every bit as a significant yes as somebody saying yes to a pulpit. Like, it's obedience, it's following the shepherd. And so we created another column of like called to a vocation or called to an occupation, that like you really sense the Lord speaking to you in that regard. And that you find a lot of people, I, of course, working with younger people, but a lot of younger people get in the same situation you were in of like, I love God a lot. I really care about him, and I want to devote my life to him. I must be called to ministry. I must, it must be that I'm supposed to work in the church. But like you, so many of us like, no, we need people in every arena of life that love Jesus like crazy, or devoted to him and willing to give it all over to him. And so I love that part of your story. that part of your journey?
Well, I finally had found my purpose, and I spoke to Weston's middle school class
Yeah.
last semester, and I was like, don't wait until you're 30 years old to seek God for what he wants you to do.
Come
I
on.
mean, if you start now, I mean, how far ahead would you be, compared to me beating my head against, oh, I'm going to be a teacher, a cop, veterinarian, or I'm
Yeah.
going to do this and do that. And the whole time he's like, whenever you get your head right, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, but you were finally in your early 30s. You were finally in a season of life where you were focused on the Lord.
Right.
You're speaking to young people saying, hey, focus when you're 15, when you're 20, but that's your story. That's your journey. And the Lord built you every step along the way, and was intentional with each step, even the ones you didn't know he was leading or guiding.
Right.
So one of the stories that you've shared with me that I think really speak to your mindset and the things the Lord have taught you is the property that you guys live on. And, if I know when you talk about stuff like that, it can be a little sensitive, but you've shared some of, you inherited some property your family did. And, well, you just share it. Talk about it.
Okay. Kelly's dad owned a farm that we live on now. It was originally 70 acres, and he passed away in 2015 unexpectedly. He had a stroke. Great man, hard worker, all his life, farmer. But much like, my grandparents, they were wheat farmers, a lot of bartering and trading, not much to go around as far as savings, didn't do, life insurance or anything like that.
Yeah.
And so when he passed away, Kelly's mom was, stuck with a lot of bills and paying for his funeral, and was just in a spot that, she needed help. And so I came and said, we're going to get you right, but we're going to have to sell some stuff to get you right.
Yeah.
And so I start dividing up this 70 acres, thinking that we're going to sell it all. Now she'll have something to retire off of.
Yeah.
And, well, she'll be set, she'll be fine. And I'm over there mowing and cleaning up, and, as old farmers are, there's different attachments and implements here and some tires there. And I just got really frustrated.
Yeah.
I mean, because I got 3 kids, I'm working a job, trying to pay for everything, and I'm over here trying to get this farm cleaned up to sell. And I said, I just said, Lord, I just can't believe he didn't leave something for her, And I don't want to talk bad about him. This was me. This is me personally.
Yeah.
And I just can't believe that, there wasn't something. There wasn't a life insurance policy. There wasn't a savings account. And the Spirit spoke to me very clearly and said, he left you a tractor and 2 pair of work gloves.
Yeah.
I'll get after it.
Come on.
And so we did. I got it all cleaned up, and we had split 7-acre, 1-acre tracts off the front, and then divided it back into 3 different tracts, expecting one price. But when we went to take it to auction, a developer stepped up beforehand and gave much more for the 7-acre, 1-acre tracts than we had expected. So it allowed us to keep 40.
Come on.
And that's where we built. And that's also the hill that I proposed to my wife on. So it's very sentimental.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I remember when you told me that, I just thought, man, that is like the picture of the original blessing, that we talk about a good bit around here, of like, I gave you something to work with.
Now use it.
You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you have to do it, and I feel like that was probably that was kind of a hinge moment in your life. That was kind of a turning point moment.
Yeah. And I was looking back at, because we had discussed tithing here the past couple weeks. Kelly and I started tithing in 2009. And it was actually the pastor at that time had made this thing. It was a 90-day money back guarantee.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't change your life in 90 days, come back here and I'll give you, all your money back. I was like, well, why not? You know? And so we sat out in the parking lot here at Cornerstone. I wrote the first check, and Kelly looked at me and she's like, "Are you serious?"
Yeah.
It's like, I believe it's going to work, babe.
Yeah.
And so we started tithing, and a few weeks after that, it's still just, Weston was young, real young. She was still working at the hospital, and the finances were still tight. And I was driving down the road. I was frustrated again.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not working. I don't have enough money to go around.
Wow.
And the Spirit again whispered to me and said, "You remember reading about what I did with the fish and a few loaves of bread?"
Mm.
I said, yeah, I remember. He said, I'll do the same thing with your bank account.
Wow.
And he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that really, between starting tithing and what I discussed earlier about I'll give it all to you.
Yes.
No, here's what I created for you. That started this new trajectory for me. And it's been a wild ride ever since. I mean, back to that 2010 moment when he told me what he created me for.
Yeah.
He said, you'll have a company that does title work, real estate, auctions, and appraisals.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's a lot. I don't know how I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, 10 years later in 2020, a gentleman that I'd started working with in 2012 brings me into his fold, and that whole company is set up and rolling.
Come on. That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
The Lord does what he says.
10 years.
I know. And we, number one, sometimes it takes 10 years. Sometimes it takes 20.
I mean, it's like the Mark Batterson quote from Chase the Lion. He said, if you're going to dream big, you better think long.
Yes. Yeah. What's the other, we overestimate what we can do in a year, underestimate what we can do in a lifetime.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And you just don't know when the compound interest takes off. Well, you're, speaking, and I don't know how many people are listening, or
probably zero after this.
Well, no, they're good. Listen, this is your new blood. You're fresh in. Like, they didn't hurt all my mess. They didn't hurt me. This Sunday will be
all your would you rather.
Yeah, this Sunday is my 175th sermon as the pastor of Cornerstone, and so like at this point, like I've said everything I know to say.
Yeah,
I'm on repeat now, so that's kind of where we are. So you being here and saying something different is a win, but maybe just speak to. Somebody in their 30s contemplating a career change or with some dreams in their heart, just 2 or 3 pieces of advice that you'd give them. And I want to pause. Like, to me, this is like as important as me, like breaking down scripture, like how people do in their life matters a whole lot to me.
Right.
I want them to thrive, because when they're thriving, there's a joy in that. There's a life in that. There is fruitfulness that affects the people around them, and it's living in purpose. Like there's a sense of fulfillment in that, and so this matters a lot to me. Like share just 2 or 3 thoughts with somebody that's in that season of life.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to seek God about your purpose first, and He's got to reveal to you whatever misconceptions you've already had, what the real plan is, where your place is.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's like dot theology, like you have to be here to be successful.
Yeah.
But like you said, if you just move over here.
Right.
If you just get under this.
Yeah.
And I think if you really truly seek Him, and we have to continually do that throughout life. We shut everything out.
Yeah. Focus
in. I don't care how long it takes. I'm going to wrestle with you until you bless me. Or I'm going to wrestle with you until you give me direction. You've got to start tithing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, as you spoke to it before, it's the first fruits. We tithe off what God gave us, not what the government left us.
Yeah.
So when you get your purpose and your finances in order, you get your fields ready before you build your house.
Yeah.
Right. And then if you're considering,
say that again and elaborate on it a little bit.
I mean, I know that scripture. I don't know where from.
Yeah, but get your fields ready before you build your house.
Yeah, you got to get those things in order. You got to get your finances in order. You've got to seek God about your purpose, for God to bless the work of your hands.
Yeah,
to help you to sow seed to reap a harvest. Those things have to be in order. If you're considering a career change, I mean, I've always been self-employed.
Yeah,
and I've seen several different businesses. It's a 3-year commitment.
Yeah,
to get started, just to get started.
Yeah,
it's not something that you're going to go. I'm going to go get my insurance license, and next year I'm going to be killing it. That's not going to happen.
Yeah,
you got to have 3 years before you're going to start to see some turnaround, some return customers, and then you're looking at the 5-year mark if you've really busted your tail before you're solid.
Yeah.
So it's a 5-year window before you start.
Yeah.
And that all comes with discipline and consistency. And I mean, that's Denzel Washington. Have you ever heard him say that quote?
Remind me if you've got it.
Dreams without goals are just dreams and ultimately fuel disappointment.
Okay.
Goals on the way to achievement cannot be attained without discipline and consistency.
Okay.
So it's doing it over and over and over again for that 3 to 5 year period.
Yeah.
Until it solidifies.
That's so good.
And, you know, I'm 46 now, and I've been working in this field since 2009.
Yeah.
And now with the contracts that we have, not that we can let up.
Yeah.
We don't let up on customer service. We don't let up on being efficient.
Yeah.
We don't let up on new technology affecting the way we work. But now we're seeing that return.
Yes.
When we go out and bid a new contract. Now you have the resume. I've done business with these different entities.
Yeah.
This is why they chose us.
It's just another version of tractor and gloves. Like there's no, I think in general, there's this hope that we'll have a grand idea. There'll just be a miracle that takes place that revolutionizes our life. But most everybody you talk to that's thriving, it comes back to gloves, tractor, discipline, and repetition. Like you have great ideas. There's all of that in there. There's talent, all of that in there, but none of that is valid if you don't just bear down.
Right. And I'm going to say the same thing about just your personal effects of life. Have you shown God that you know, if you were to go meet Jesus tomorrow, have you taken care of, have you set your, you know, are you married? Do you have kids? You know, do you have a life insurance policy in place?
Yeah.
I mean, that just shows that you're thinking about somebody beside yourself.
Yeah.
Do you have a will in place? I mean, Kelly and I's will, we set it up 5 years ago. We revisit every 5 years, but out of our estates, if one of us passes, once the estate is settled, 10% of that goes to the church. I want to tithe on the way out.
Yeah.
So, he's been so generous, blessing the work of our hands and with our giving. I mean, you illustrated it with all the vegetables.
Well, I stole it. Rob Ketterling did it first, and about 20,000 other pastors have done it. But
he didn't look as good because he didn't have that Holy Ghost swoop.
Well, I can't speak to that.
Were his ankles showing when he was doing it? I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
I'm out of control with the ankles. I was telling somebody the other day, I can't, with rare exception, if they're really padded, I can't wear like high top shoes because my ankles are so bony.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts. Like it's uncomfortable. It's one of the. It's just one of
Kelly
my
gets
quirks.
frustrated at me because I wear dress socks with everything, like jeans, and she's like, "You know how ridiculous that looks." And I said, "But they're extremely comfortable."
Yes, it don't matter.
I'm 46 years old. I don't care.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Are there a couple of scriptures that are significant to you in the marketplace and how you see your kingdom responsibility, your family responsibility? I know there have been times where you've sent me scriptures like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Or, you know, I'd love to, you know, talk about this text or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many. I mean, as far as giving goes, I think you've covered it. 2 Corinthians 9. Now, he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness.
Yeah.
And why does he do that? So that you can be generous on every occasion. Every occasion.
Ready for it.
Ready for it.
You are equipped to be generous.
Yeah, and I think that comes with the gift of giving. I don't know if there's a misconception about, well, they have money, so they have the gift of giving. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think the gift of giving comes with a burden.
Yeah.
To fulfill a need.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Because
and that's the Romans 12 gift of giving is where it references it.
I mean, you know, we'll be sitting in board meetings and it's commercial repair or something something. I'll be like,
yeah.
I think I could give to that. I
Yeah.
think I could cover that. Or, you know, the youth are doing a fundraiser and they didn't quite hit their goal.
Yeah.
You know, I may check in with the pastor and say, "Did you guys make your goal?" "No, we missed it." "Well, how much you miss it by?"
Yeah.
I carry that on me.
Yeah.
I mean, even the church debt, I don't have 17 million laying around, but if I do,
I know.
I think he wants to just whack it off a little bit at a time. He's building us in the process.
We're learning.
We're
learning. I mean, we feel like, and we've shared, you know, early in the year with the congregation, just where we are financially. And I feel like we're in a season of developing stewardship.
Yeah.
And again, being mindful that every penny's worship, like every decision has significance, can't be flippant. Do you have any Ecclesiastes texts in there?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. Throw me a couple of those. I just think Ecclesiastes is good when it comes to
Yeah,
working in
and
life.
I mean, I think as you build your life, the next step is investing,
Yeah.
right? To build, I mean, your wealth isn't judged off your possessions; it's what's in your savings account.
Yeah.
But you can't let your savings account sit idle. I mean,
Right.
you talk about, was it Matthew with the story of the talents?
Yeah.
One guy had 5, one guy had 2, the last guy got 1.
Yeah.
No discernment on why one guy had 5 or one had 2.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. That's just the position in life. But do you think they got 5 talents and just went and sat on their duff?
Nope.
No, they worked their tails off.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened? They got the more talents from the other guy.
Right.
And now he's got to go back to work.
Right.
And I think that's a misconception with wealth, is it's going to bring me a level of joy and peace that I don't currently have. And that is so wrong.
Yeah.
There's no more peace.
Come on.
There's no more joy
Wow.
and money. There's not.
Yeah.
Are there different opportunities to do things? Yes. Doesn't make you any smarter. Doesn't make you any better than anybody else. Definitely doesn't take any workload off.
Yeah.
Because there's so many more decisions to make.
Yeah.
I mean, because God tells you, if you get idle, she gone.
Right. Yes.
And so you got to keep churning. And so when people even had pastors, well, if I just had $500,000, I was like, for what?
Right.
If you didn't do anything with it, you wouldn't have it very long.
Right.
And it's not going to bring any more peace or any more joy.
And there's some scenarios you kind of mentioned that where it's like if you don't manage what you have, if you were given $1 million, you'd lose it all. You'd squander it. It'd go away because you haven't cultivated a life that can hold.
And so that's what Ecclesiastes. Let's see. This is 11. This is NIV. It says, "Ship your grain across the sea." I think in New King James Version it says, "Cast your bread upon the waters."
Yeah.
Okay. So cast your bread upon the waters. After many days, you may receive a return. Invest in 7 ventures. Yes, 8. So spread it out.
Yeah.
You don't know what disaster may come upon the land.
Yeah.
If clouds are full of water, they pour rain on the earth. Whether a tree falls to the south or north, in the place where it falls, there it will lie. Whoever watches the wind will not plant. Whoever looks at the clouds will not reap. As you do not know the path of the wind or how the body is formed in a mother's womb, so you cannot understand the work of God, the maker of all things. Sow your seed in the morning, and at evening let your hands not be idle.
Yeah.
For you do not know which will succeed, whether this or that.
Yeah. And that sow your seed in the morning.
And if anybody's looking at the stock market right now, they're like,
right.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole nother
But
conversation
about there.
tariffs.
Spread it out.
Don't get it in one spot.
You're going to take a hit every once in a while.
Well, that sow your seed in the morning, and we'll start bringing it to an end. I want to talk about one more thing that's more lighthearted, but that sow your seed in the morning, I think, the way I read that in part is it speaks of early in life. They start early in the morning of life. T.D. Jakes references an African proverb, "Don't eat your dinner in the morning." Like in your young years, you need to be grinding. You need to be with your work ethic, with how you handle your resources. You need to be sowing into your future.
Right.
There's going to be a time to eat your dinner. Like there's going to be a time to kind of take in the fruit of your labor. But in those early years, be really diligent in that season, in part because it's the season of your most energy. It's the era when you have the most time. Like with each commitment, you lose time, so to speak. Like,
right.
And I don't mean that in a negative way. When you get married, now your time has to be reallocated. With 1 child, 2 children, 3 children, it begins to change. And so, man, I think of any 20-year-old listening to this, like, now is your time. I tell our younger pastors, like, this is your time to bear down and start sowing into your future, because you will have less and less time. Not literally, but how you have to ration it out changes.
Yeah, and I mean, from a financial standpoint, the earlier.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett started investing when he was 10 years old.
Wow.
Okay, but he didn't make most of his wealth until he was after 50. But he started investing when he was 10. The compound interest is just killer. There was a interview of a gentleman who'd worked at a as a parking lot attendant most of his life. And I think he never made more than $12 an hour, but he took $25 a month from every check and put it in an investment account and was sitting on $500,000 by
Wow.
the time. I mean, so I've set it up. I mean, you know, because a righteous man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. My kids come on payroll when they're 10 years old.
Yeah.
And we're going to start investing.
Wow. That's incredible. Well, one more, and it is our turkey hunt together.
I don't know if I call it a hunt. It's more like a treasure hunt.
Well, a couple of years ago, we went turkey hunting, and we had a good time. We didn't kill any turkeys.
I saw parts of my property I've never seen before.
We climbed every hill twice.
Yeah,
and you picked up a few of my country sayings, because I get out there in the camo with a shotgun and get hot and sweaty, and you just start saying stuff from your past, you know, like knock around a little bit.
Covington comes in on you.
Yeah. The more tired I get,
knock around a little bit.
The more tired I get, the more the filters go down, and the more the Covington comes out.
We knocked around a lot that day.
Yes, we were tired. We earned it. We didn't
kill
nothing,
fire a shot.
Not a bit. Made a bunch of turkey sounds.
Right. You did. Like this guy done lost his mind.
Well, listen, I love you.
Love you too.
And I appreciate the insight. And as much as anything, I wanted to just put a spotlight on you, because I see what you're doing. I hear your heart for your family, your heart for the church. You're generous, and you're intentional with it, and you're missional about it. Like there's a purpose behind it. It's biblically based, and I just respect you a ton.
Thank you.
For just your mindset when it comes to your role in the church, resources, work, and you know, I just in part wanted to sit with you for anybody that's listening, so they could see that I'm sitting with somebody that's not a pastor. Because I try to convey it from the pulpit. I hope it resonates. I hope it is, you know, felt as true. I care a lot about the families of Cornerstone when they walk out of Cornerstone, and the jobs they have, their resources, the quality of life for their families and their future. I just really do believe that there's so much wisdom in Scripture that, if applied, yields fruitfulness.
Right.
And I love the miraculous. I love when it's just a shocking breakthrough. But I think sometimes we overvalue the miraculous, and we undervalue what God gave us to work with.
Right.
And I just want us all to be people that are really good stewards with everything He gave us to work with the belief that, like, He gave me everything I need to thrive. You know, and thriving looks different for everybody based on your Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
But man, generationally, from one generation to the next, we can create a different paradigm. Any final statement?
I don't think so. I just appreciate you inviting me on here. I appreciate you being my friend and my pastor. You know, one last thing for any young folks out there, I think it's really important that you find authority figures in your different arenas to place yourself under.
Yeah.
There's one gentleman that talked about, you know, Jesus grew in authority because he was under the authority of his Father, and the centurion increased in his authority because he was under the authority of Caesar.
Yeah.
You know, in my business, I have a mentor. And it's taken me a while to find him, but he's not only really good at what he does, he's got really strong character.
Yeah.
And in my spiritual life, to be under your authority, even though I give you a lot of grief,
I don't mind it.
That builds us up.
Yeah.
It helps make us more successful and grow in those areas. So I think that's really important as well. Well,
Pastor Gunner and I went to the thing, the teaching that Rob Ketterling did. It was a generosity accelerator. And he was talking about, you know, highly successful people in your church and how to relate to them. And his first statement was, know your role. Your role is their pastor. Like, I don't know anything about auctioning I don't know any of that. That's not why I'm in your life. Like, I'm here to spiritually be engaged with you and to love you and be what you need in various seasons of life. So I love you. If you're listening, watching, whatever the case, we're glad that you did. Again, subscribe, like, share, comment, do all the things that let us know that you're engaged. And if you know anybody, I would encourage you, if you know anybody in their 30s, in their 20s that have dreams, hopes, and aspirations, share this with them. I think it'll be a good real life listen. Anyway, we love you. Till next time.